Have you ever stopped to think about what your words are really made of? What if every single word you spoke actually carried a tiny piece of your life force out into the world? Well, today we're diving headfirst into an absolutely fascinating metaphysical system called the field of wind. We're going to decode the deep connections between sound, spirit, and the power of inspiration itself. It's a wild concept, so let's jump right in.
So to even get into the Hall of Wind, you have to meet this one single condition, and it's written right there on an emerald tablet: the power to inspire. But what does that actually mean? It's not just about being a good public speaker. The source text hints that it's something way more fundamental, something tied to our very existence. Okay, so the very first clue is right there in the name. The text connects wind, or ventus, with the simple act of taking a breath. And what is breath, really, when you think about it? It's how we absorb life energy, or spirit, from the world around us. It is the most basic, fundamental act of being alive. And this idea goes deep, right into the creation mythology of the source text. It says that while the world was created by the Word of God, humanity, well, we were different. We were formed from dust, sure, but we were brought to life by the breath of God. In other words, the Spirit of God. The connection couldn't be more direct. So, with that fundamental understanding, the gate swings open. Now let's map out what's actually inside. The Hall of Wind. So, as you can see, the whole thing is structured as a hierarchy. You've got the main Hall of Wind at the top. But our journey begins down in the sub-Hall of Sound, which itself is split into harmony and dissonance. From there, the path gets even more complex, moving through electromagnetism and eventually to wood. And boom, right away, there's a problem. Our protagonist, Mitsuki, as she gets close to the sub-hall of sound, she's just blasted with this disorienting, high-pitched static. It's just a wall of chaotic noise, and it's the very first barrier she has to figure out and overcome. And then, she has this incredible aha moment. After creating a little pocket of normal density air, the static suddenly changes to a low hum. She realizes the sound itself didn't change at all. Her perception of it did. The big takeaway here is that the quality of any sound depends entirely on the medium it's traveling through.
That realization is the key that unlocks everything. Once you understand the principle, you can start to deconstruct the chaos. So let's look at how Mitsuki takes that overwhelming static and transforms it into pure harmony.
Her method is just brilliant. It's like a physics experiment. First, she creates these little isolated bubbles of air, and each one has a totally unique density. This stops all the chaotic interference. Then, by striking them in a specific order, she can finally hear and analyze each individual sound that was buried in all that noise.
And this slide really breaks down the science behind it. That static, that was dissonance. It was just a mess of sound waves clashing and canceling each other out, destructive interference. But by isolating them and then combining them in just the right way, she creates harmony, constructive interference, where the waves align to make these full, rich, new sounds.
And the end result of all this work isn't just getting rid of the noise, it's creating something beautiful. By sequencing these carefully built harmonies, a complex and absolutely gorgeous melody emerges from what was once total chaos. It's a perfect metaphor.
So why does any of this matter? Well, the source text takes this idea to a whole new level. Sound isn't just about physics, it's the bedrock of communication. Just like the slide says, when we take articulated sounds and we assign meaning to them, that's how language is born. And language is what builds communities, societies, our entire shared reality.
Okay, so we've gone from raw sound to language. Now our journey takes us to the next sub-hall, electromagnetism. And this is where the same principles get applied to something way more abstract, the very nature of thought itself. So this is the next major conceptual leap. The text proposes that this field represents the direct link between the physical world of sound and the internal, abstract world of ideas. How do we get from a simple vibration in the air to a complex concept inside our own minds?
The source text explains this with a really cool analogy from telecommunications. The electric aspect is demodulation. That's you, breaking down a concept to really understand it. The magnetic aspect is modulation. That's reassembling all those pieces to express the idea to someone else. It perfectly describes that feeling of, getting something versus being able to actually explain it.
All right, we've covered sound and we've covered ideas. Now it's time for the grand finale, the synthesis, where all these different threads, breath, sound, language, thought, they all get woven together to reveal the ultimate truth behind the field of wind.
And look at that, we've come full circle, right back to where we started.
The source reminds us that communication is not just some mental exercise. The actual art of speaking, of sharing ideas, requires the conscious, physical control of our breath. It's a process that involves our entire body.
And this leads to the central metaphysical claim of the whole system. If breath is spirit, then the act of speaking, of breathing out to form words, means a tiny piece of our life force, our spirit, literally escapes with every single word we say.
Think about what that means. Our words are not just empty vibrations in the air. According to this system, they are literally carriers of our spirit. Our life essence is fundamentally, inextricably tied to the words we choose to put out into the world.
And that has huge consequences, because if our words carry our spirit, they have the power to directly affect the spirit of another person, to penetrate it, as the text says. This is why words can build a friendship that lasts a lifetime, or create an enemy in an instant. They can attract or repel, build up or tear down, all because they are conduits of life force.
So this leaves us with a final, really powerful question to chew on. If we accept this idea that our words are literal extensions of our spirit, what kind of responsibility does that put on us? What kind of reality are we breathing into existence every time we choose to speak? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this one.